You ever wake up to the sound of birds chirping, sun peeking through the tent flap, and your first thought is, dang, that bear was loud last night? Well, that's a normal Tuesday for me. Name's Ryan. I'm a 27-year-old park ranger, and I live about as close to the edge of the wilderness as you can get without needing a permit. Think national park/reserve, mountains all around, dirt roads, pine trees tall enough to hide a cell tower, and the air so clean it almost tastes sweet. I've got a one-room log cabin, no TV, no internet, just me, my gear, and a view that makes all those tech bros cry on their treadmills. I guess you could say I'm an adventure junkie. Always have been. Camping with bears, done it. Sleeping under a thunderstorm in a hammock. Twice. Ate nothing but beef jerky for breakfast 5 days straight once just because I could. The local store guy thinks I'm nuts, but he still stocks the teriyaki kind I like. I live out here because, honestly, it's where I belong. The quiet, the trees, the rush of wind down a ravine. It all makes sense to me in a way cities never could. Growing up, we didn't have much. My folks were good people, hardworking, kind. The kind who packed you a sandwich, even if they were skipping lunch themselves. But money? Well, that was always tight. Vacations meant a beat-up tent, a bag of dollar store marshmallows, and the same pair of jeans all week. I didn't care. Those were the best days of my life. I remember the crackle of the campfire, Mom grilling whatever Dad pulled out of the lake that morning. Bluegill, usually. Dad said they were ugly fish, but tasty as heck. We'd all sit on upturned logs, roasting marshmallows so cheap they stuck to your fingers worse than gum. The stars above seemed like they were putting on a show just for us. But my favorite part? Caving. My dad had this thing for exploring the old mines scattered around the hills. Some were sealed off, but others, well, let's just say we didn't ask permission. He'd bring a couple flashlights, a cheap plastic helmet for me, and we would spend hours down in those tunnels. It was cool and damp, the air always smelling like wet stone and rust. I felt like Indiana Jones, minus the whip and, the giant boulders. Just a scrawny kid with dirt on his face and his old man showing him the ropes. Those summers, they shaped me. I didn't have, new Converse like the other kids at school. My backpack was duct taped and my lunch was wrapped in tin foil. No fancy boxes. But I had stories. Real ones. And when I grew up, well, I never really let go of that. College was a detour. Got a degree in environmental science because, hey, turns out loving the woods can be useful. Most of my classmates wanted to work for conservation groups or wear ties and argue about wetlands in a boardroom. Me? I just wanted to get back out of here. And I did. Now, officially, I'm a park ranger. But I'm not the type who hands out trail maps or stands around sipping coffee by the station porch. I'm what they call a caver. That's right. I take people, mostly kids, into the caves near the park trails. We explore the tunnels. I teach them about bats and rock formations. I spook them with scary stories. And we all run like heck when we actually see a bat. At the end of the day, they all get a shiny badge that says Junior Caver or something like that. Their parents take pictures. The kids feel like explorers. And I get to pretend like I'm 10 years old again. It's a good gig. Honest work. Been doing it 5 summers now, and I know these caves like the back of my hand. Of course, it's not always fun and games. Some summers have been weirder than others. I've seen things down there that I don't talk about often. Strange things. Things that don't fit into my ranger manual or any biology textbook. But I'll get to those. My name is Ryan, and I'm a cave explorer. These are my stories. Now, cave exploring has always been strange. Heck, anything that has to do with the woods or dark, tight places is strange if you think about it. There's just something ancient about being in a cave. When you're down there, away from sunlight, no phone signal, no road noise, surrounded by rock on all sides. It does something to your brain. It's not like a haunted house or a horror movie. This is a different kind of fear. Older. Like something deep in you remembers being afraid of places just like that. Some people can't handle it. They panic, start breathing fast, sweating. One kid threw up in his helmet once. It's not even the tight spaces that get him. It's the stillness, the silence. You feel like you've been dropped off the face of the earth. Me. Well, I love it. Always have. I guess I'm one of the weird ones. I like the quiet. I like the cold air and the crunch of gravel under my boots. I like how your voice bounces off the walls in funny ways. I even like the smell. Kind of earthy, kind of damp. Reminds me of being a kid. When Dad and I would go crawling through the old mine shafts in the hills. Just me, him, and a cheap flashlight from the gas station. But even I have to admit, there are times when it gets too quiet, when the silence feels heavy, and sometimes when you're real deep inside the mountain, it feels like you're not alone. I've been leading these cave tours for a while now. 5 summers and counting. I've taken groups of kids into all kinds of caverns. Most are shallow, wide, easy to move around in. We keep it safe, we keep it light. Tell ghost stories, talk about stalactites, get them their little explorer badge like I said, and it's good fun. But not every summer is the same. Some summers are off. The first time I saw something I couldn't explain, it was back in 2009. I remember the year because it was hot as hell that season, and the caves were the only place that felt cold. I had a group of 10 kids, maybe 12. A mix of middle schoolers, mostly city kids. They got loud when they got nervous, which was fine by me. Better than crying. We were in this cave I'd explored 100 times. It had a little natural stone bridge about halfway through. Kind of a neat feature. Nothing dramatic, just a bump in the trail. We were almost across it when it gave out. I don't know if it was the heat, or the weight of the group, or maybe time just wore it down. But that section of the rock just snapped, and down we went. Not far, thankfully, maybe 6 or 7 feet. But one of the girls landed wrong. A couple of rocks slid down with us, and one of them pinned her leg. She screamed. Loud. Everyone else screamed too, which didn't help. My partner Josh was already on the radio before I even got to her. I kept her talking, kept her breathing slow. Asked her about her dog, her favorite TV show, stuff like that. She calmed down fast too. Tough kid. Help showed up fast. The whole team was trained for stuff like this. They had her out in under an hour. Her leg wasn't even broken, just bruised up bad. But while we waited, we were stuck down there, just me and her. The others moved out for safety. And it was then that I felt something. You ever feel like you're being watched? I know, it's a stupid thing to say. Everybody asks that. But that's what it felt like. Not just a feeling. I knew something was watching us. From the dark tunnel ahead, past where the light reached. And then I saw him. 2 small red points of light. Round. Unmoving. Just hanging there in the dark like a pair of coals. I didn't say anything. Not to the girl. She didn't see it. and I made sure she didn't look that way. I told the team to speed up, told them I didn't like it down here. They must have thought I was just spooked from the fall. As soon as the girl was up and out, and they cleared the area, I told them I needed to double-check something, and I went back in, alone. Now I know what you're thinking. That was dumb. But I wasn't thinking straight. I thought maybe it was a raccoon or an owl, or worse, some stupid teenager with a flashlight trying to mess with me. We get pranksters like that every now and then. So I went back down in the tunnel, past where the bridge had been, past where we landed. And I kept going. The cave narrowed quick. I had to duck, then crouch, then finally get down on my belly and crawl. Eventually, the tunnel opened up again. There was a wide space, round and low, with a little slope of rubble in the back. In the far corner, hunched over something furry, was a thing. I don't even know what to call it. It was pale, like it hadn't seen the sun in 100 years. Real skinny, but strong looking. The legs bent wrong. Its back was arched, like it'd been crawling for too long. Its head moved in little jerks, kind of like a bird. It was chewing on a dead skunk. I watched it tear off a piece with these sharp little teeth, and I felt something in me scream to get out. But I didn't move. Not until it lifted its head and looked toward me. I didn't wait for anything more. I backed out the way I came, fast. When I got to the bridge, or what was left of it, I took out my knife and cut the ropes I'd used to brace the edge. Let the whole thing fall in. When I got back to the station, I told the team animals had gotten into that section. Said it wasn't safe anymore. Too unstable. Too risky. We marked it off on the map and told future groups to steer clear. I never mentioned what I really saw, and I never went back. You know, my mom used to say something when I was little, back when Dad and I would go crawling through the mines on the weekends. She'd stand by the porch with her arms crossed, shaking her head like she knew something we didn't. She'd say, "You think you're all alone in there? Think again." Back then, I thought you just meant bears. Maybe bats. Now I am not so sure. There are strange things that live in these caves. Now all rangers see things. Maybe not right away, but give it time. Especially us cavers. We spend more hours underground than above it some weeks. And the things we come across, they don't always make sense. Every one of us has a story we keep off the books. Stuff that doesn't make it into the welcome packet or the park website. Some of it's harmless, weird, but harmless. Some of it sticks with you. The next one I've got is about cave water. Simple stuff, really. But I've learned a long time ago, nothing in these caves is ever just what it seems. When I was a trainee, most of my time was spent hauling gear, holding flashlights, and trying not to screw anything up. That's the real start of it. If you want to know how someone becomes a proper caver, it's not glamorous. You don't show up with a headlamp and a vest and suddenly get handed a badge and a whistle. You put in hours, weeks, following the older guys around like a shadow, learning what to touch and what not to. What clay looks like when it's ready to collapse. How to read airflow off a dead end. And then there's the scientific work. That's the part most people outside the field don't think about. People hear caver and picture some crazy guy with ropes and a machete. But real caving, our kind, it's controlled, precise. We map, we log formations, we take samples. Some folks do biology work, others focus on water movement, structural stability, minerals, bat populations, that sort of thing. If you're in the field full time, odds are you've got a degree, maybe two. It's not all glory and dirt. Back then, the head of our training team was this guy named Jackson. Big guy, loud, always talking like he was on camera. He wore too much Axe body spray, to the point where it clung to the insides of the damn helmets. I think he thought it made him cool. I was a few years younger, fresh out of school and eager to prove myself, so I kept my mouth shut about it. At the time, I assumed everyone around me was experienced. You know how it is when you're new. You figure anyone with gear and a clipboard must know what they're doing. Only took me a few hours to realize I'd been very wrong. We went out to a cave called Split Jaw. Locals named it that because of the jagged entrance. It's not a tourist site, more of a study location. Remote, unlit, the kind of place where GPS stops working halfway through the hike in. Our objective was simple. Track moisture deposits along a fault line that ran down the center of the second chamber. Seemed easy enough. We got inside fine. Helmets on, pack secured. First mile or so was the usual. Tight passage, small pools, chalk markings from past teams. But then we hit the chute. It was about 40 feet down, angled just steep enough to make you second guess yourself. The whole thing was caked in thick, wet clay, like someone had taken a hose to a water slide. Going down was easy. You just sat and let gravity take care of it. But I remember looking back up once I was at the bottom and thinking, how the hell are we getting out of here? No ropes, no spikes, nothing to grab onto. Should we rig something? I asked. Jackson just grinned. We'll figure it out when we get there. That was the first time my gut twisted a little. Later on, we came to the river. It cut straight through the chamber like someone had dropped a saw blade through the rock. The walls on either side were about 8 feet high, smooth, with barely any holes. The water itself wasn't that wide, maybe 10, 12 feet across. But it was moving fast, waist deep and cold as hell. Jackson stood at the edge, peering down into the water like he was trying to guess its mood. You think it's deep? I asked. He smirked. Only one way to find out. I gave him a look. It's not really science, I said. Sure it is. Field testing, he said, tightening the straps on his pack. You, bringing a rope this time, or? Jackson grinned. Where's the fun in ropes? I rolled my eyes. Okay, seriously, man, the current's moving. We screw this up, we're not climbing out of here. He stepped in without answering. Jackson was the first in. I went next. The current hit me like a truck. I nearly lost my footing twice before I got to the other side. Climbing the opposite wall took everything I had. I scraped my forearms raw, trying to pull myself up on wet rock, cursing under my breath the whole time. But what happened next made all that feel like nothing. Jackson was about halfway across when he stopped moving. Just stopped, like he'd hit something under the surface. Then he lurched forward and went under. Not slept. Pulled. Everyone panicked. One guy dropped his pack, another jumped in. Took 3 of us to drag Jackson back up. The water fought us the whole way, like it didn't want to let him go. When we got him up, he was screaming so loud I couldn't think. Just this raw, horrible sound. His leg was torn up. Deep red gashes down his calf and thigh, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was his foot. The toes were gone. Gone, like something had bitten straight through the boot and the flesh underneath. Clean. There was no blood in the water when he went under. No warning. No flash of anything moving. Just him. And then pain. We wrapped his leg in a shirt and used spare rope as a tourniquet. It wasn't clean, but it was enough to get him moving. We abandoned the mission, obviously, left some gear behind, carried Jackson out inch by inch. When we got to the chute again, it was exactly as bad as I'd imagined. The clay turned every step into a fight. I clawed my way up with my nails, digging into dirt and slick rock, pulling myself one miserable foot at a time. At the top, I looked down and realized just how stupid we'd been. We filed an incident report when we got back. Standard procedure. I put in everything I saw. The pull, the wounds, the bite. I left out the part where I was afraid to go near water for weeks after. I figured that wasn't helpful. Jackson quit the next week, right after getting out of the hospital. Never came back to the station, never answered my text. I think part of him wanted to pretend it never happened. But I remember. I remember the sound of him screaming, the look on his face when he saw his foot, the strange silence from the rest of the team after we made it topside. Because here's the thing. Piranhas don't live in caves. And no rock in that water was sharp enough to bite a man's toes clean off. I still think about that river. About what could have been under there. We didn't go back. Nobody wanted to. Official word was hazardous conditions. But that's just paperwork. The truth is, something was in that water. Something strong. Something fast. And something quiet. Jackson was lucky in a way. He made it out, and now he works in a fancy boardroom far away from this place. And if you ask around the ranger station, the ones who've been here long enough, you'll notice none of us go back there. I was about half a mile in, working on bat collection, when the call came through. The job that day was simple. Monitor a cluster of roosting bats near an old drip line. I had my sample kit out, one glove on, fiddling with a set of tubes that didn't want to seal right. I was already annoyed, and my radio crackled right when I finally got the thing to sit straight. "Ryan, come in. We've got a situation." It was Linda, a fellow ranger who usually got stuck filing reports by the station. I clicked the receiver. "Go ahead." "Girl's missing. Summer group. Name's Lacey. Yellow shirt," she said. I paused, squinting through the low light. "Yellow shirt?" "Should be obvious. Last visual had her headed your direction, copy," she said. "Copy. I'll start the sweep." I packed up the gear in a rush. Now, finding kids isn't like tracking adults. You don't look for footprints or call out names over and over like in the movies. Kids go where they feel small, where they can hide. You've got to think like one. I start small and move out. Always. It's counterintuitive. Most people think you search the big caverns first. Open areas, louder echo, easier to move through. But I've found that kids don't like big empty places. They like crawl spaces. Spaces they can wedge into, curl up, feel surrounded, comforted. It's how their brains work when they're scared. So I checked the tighter offshoots first. Cracks along the wall, dead-end tunnels, anything low and narrow. Called her name once or twice, quiet-like. Didn't want to spook her. Or anything else. After about 20 minutes, I heard the faint trickle of water. That was enough to narrow it down. On this side of the trail, there's a small shaft not far from a slow-drip tunnel. Not mapped anymore. Barely wide enough to squeeze through if you've had a big breakfast. I got on my hands and knees and shined my light into it. There she was. Lacey. Yellow shirt. Curled up with her knees pulled to her chest, maybe 10 or 11 years old. Wide-eyed but calm. Not crying, not shaking. Just quiet. Lacey, hey, you mind coming out here with me? I said, keeping my voice steady. She nodded and held up her arms like she already knew I'd carry her. I held on to her and crawled out backward. It took a few extra breaths to get upright again, but we were out in no time. She held onto my shoulder like a backpack strap the whole way back. Didn't say much. Later, after she'd had some water and the other kids had stopped crowding her, I sat with her by the gear bench. You okay? She nodded. I wasn't scared. Well, you did great. Real smart staying put. Makes it easier for us to find you. She looked at me, then glanced down at her shoes. You weren't the first to find me. I blinked. What do you mean? There was a man before you got here. I sat up straighter. A man? She nodded. He had a big coat and a hard hat and a long beard. He said you'd come to get me. I stared at her for a long second. You're sure? She looked me dead in the eyes. He said his name was Henry. Now, there hasn't been a mining team in these mountains since the 70s. Before the park got its official status, this whole range was a network of old claims and tunnels, most of them long since sealed or collapsed. I helped seal some of them myself. No access, no light, no reason for anyone to be down there. When I got back to the station that night, I went straight to my supervisor's office. His name's Mitch. Old-timer. Been here longer than the paint on the walls. I asked him if he knew anything about a miner named Henry. He didn't even blink. You saw Henry? I paused. No, one of the kids did. He leaned back in his chair and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Yeah, that sounds like him. Who is he? I asked. Mitch looked toward the window, like he needed to picture it. Back when they were still digging for gold out here, there was a collapse. About 9 men got buried in the shaft near Saddle Ridge. Only 4 made it out. One of them was Henry. Henry something. Nobody remembers his last name, just that he was the foreman. Real serious guy. Carried a pickaxe everywhere, even above ground. Story goes, he died trying to dig out the others. Refused to leave until he got everyone out. Didn't make it. Mitch explained. I sat there trying to process it. So you're telling me a ghost helped this kid? Mitch gave a small shrug. Oh, he's not the kind that scares folk. He's quiet. Stays out of sight unless he's got a reason. But yes, some of the rangers believe in him, especially the older ones. We've had stories like this before. How many? I asked. Mitch leaned forward. Well, every couple years, Lost kid, found safe, usually by water. They always say the same thing. Hard hat, big beard, didn't talk much. I didn't know what to say. Years passed after that. Lacey's group came and went. But it wasn't the last time something like that happened. 8 times out of 10, when a kid goes missing on that side of the range, I find them by water. Same exact spot I found her. Sometimes it takes an hour, sometimes a few. But they're always okay. A little shaken, but fine. And they always mention the man in the hard hat. So now, when kids get lost and we're out searching, I tell the rookies not to worry too much if we're in Henry's territory. I tell them to keep calm, stick to the paths, look for the stream. And when I find the kid, I ask them what happened. Most of the time, they say, a man helped me. And I know who they mean. Sometimes I leave coffee and a piece of bread by the old collapsed shaft near Saddle Ridge. Nothing big, just a thanks. I don't know if it matters. I don't expect anything in return, but it feels right. Over the years, I have seen some strange things in these caves. Good things. Terrible things. Things that'll make you think twice before cracking a joke about ghosts. Things that make you double-check your flashlight, even when it's fully charged. I've seen a lot in these caves. Some of it helpful, some of it dangerous. Most of it very hard to explain. I've learned that kids don't wander far, but they don't always go where you'd expect. That the smallest spaces are where you look first. The water inside a cave is never just water, and that you always bring rope, even if you think you don't need it. I've learned there are animals that don't show up in any guidebooks, injuries that can't be blamed on rocks, sounds that aren't wind, no matter how much people want them to be. I don't have theories. I'm not that kind of guy. But I pay attention. You work a job like this long enough, and you stop looking for explanations. You just learn how to work around the things that don't make sense. Well, they gave me a promotion last fall. Field lead. Fancy title. Slightly bigger paycheck. Still the same dirt under my nails. The best part, I upgraded from beef jerky to bacon for breakfast. Honest to God, pan-fried bacon. That alone was worth the years I put in. I still keep a pack of jerky in the glove box, out of habit, but it doesn't hit the same now that I have tasted victory. Things have changed a bit since my trainee days. I don't get sent crawling through mudslides unless I volunteer, which, unfortunately for me, I still do more often than I should. But I've got more say in what I take on now. More freedom in the field. I get to run my own research schedule during the off-season, which means no school groups until the summer rolls back around. Just me, the rocks, and the long list of data points the lab wants me to collect. Don't get me wrong, I miss the kids. Nothing beats the look on their faces the first time they step into a cavern and realize how big and quiet the underground world really is. But these winter months, they've been peaceful, quiet. There's a rhythm to field work. Wake up early, gear up, hike out, take your samples, document, get back before dark, repeat. I don't mind the routine. There's always a project going on. Water quality in the limestone runoffs, bat population tracking, mineral shifts, fungal growth studies. Stuff that sounds boring unless you're the one holding the flashlight and seeing it real up close. Sometimes I send the samples back in padded coolers. Sometimes I haul them out on foot. Either way, it keeps me moving. And that's the kind of life I like. And yeah, I still bring Henry his coffee. Not every week, but often enough. Sometimes I leave it just outside the collapsed shaft with a folded napkin and a square of bread. Sometimes it's a paper cup on a warm rock ledge. Nobody touches it, not even the animals. But the cup is always empty when I come back. The way I see it, Henry is a part of this place, same as the rest of us. Only difference is, he's got more history in his bones. Now, if you ever think about becoming a ranger, especially a cave explorer, you'd better know what you're signing up for. You'll spend a lot of time cold, wet, sore, and questioning your life choices. You'll get used to eating granola bars at 3 a.m. and waking up with your face half frozen to your sleeve. You'll learn to walk without making noise, to crawl without panic, to know the difference between a rock shift and something else moving in the dark. You'll also see things most people never do. Light filtering through cords like a lantern. Bats swirling overhead in perfect silence. Pools so still they look like glass. And yes, sometimes things you can't quite explain. There are strange things that live in these parts. I've said it before and I will say it again. Some things hide in the cracks and the cold and the silence. Strangers still are the people who stick around, the ones who see things and keep coming back, the ones who learn to live alongside the unexplainable and walk the same routes like they're just part of the terrain. Most folks would run or laugh it off or pretend it never happened. We don't. We get up the next day and go back in because that's the job. And if you ask me, it's a job worth doing. There's something about being the person who helps a kid out of a crawl space, who gets a call, drops everything, and ends the day with everyone accounted for, who knows the tunnels well enough to make it back without markers. Yeah, some days are harder than others. Some weeks stretch longer than they should. But when it's all said and done and you walk out of the cave, you get to stand up straight again, peel off your gloves, and look up. And when you do, you get a sky full of real stars. That's the part no one tells you about. Not the weirdness, not the bruises, not even the scary stories. It's the stars. The moment when you come back to the surface, blink a few times, and see the whole damn sky waiting for you. That's what makes it worth it. That and the bacon. But seriously, if you ever do take the job, always bring extra rope.